best player available and figure it out later. I was just surprised that they saw Dalen Terry as the best player available.
I take it you've come to test your knowledge in a battle of wit. Rapper Ludacris stars in which film franchise?
He has a knack for drafting overlooked
Fast and the Furious.
Possess high upside potential, and for Dalen
You
Terry,
impress me.
there's a lot
Nicely
to like
done.
about this kid. And I
Which
talked about
rapper
this
was
a
named
bit in
after
my
an
last video,
18th century
but most
Peruvian
importantly
rapper?
is his determination and desire to get to work and provide an impact to this team
Revolutionary,
immediately. I've talked about this in the past. There is something to be said about players who have the right mindset going into the NBA.
Should have made that one more difficult. Which rapper's dog, Daddy, was featured on Cesar Millan?
To get better and proving any doubters wrong. We saw that last season with Idasumu. I was always asking questions of the players, always looking for advice and feedback on his play from guys like Lamar,
wrong,
Vucevic,
as I
another player that
expected.
was overlooked. And went into the
Unfortunately,
second round,
you have
he kept
failed.
working,
Perhaps next time we
grinding,
meet,
soaked
I'll
up
be
as
in a more...
much as he could, and proved to be an
I take it you've come to test your
roster
knowledge
last
in a
year,
battle of
especially with Lonzo
rapper
Ball being out,
Ludacris stars
and also
in
getting
which
selected
film
all over his second
franchise?
team as a result. Dalen Terry, another
Fast and
guy
the Furious.
who said both at the draft combine as well as
You
last night
impress
in
me.
his media
Nicely done.
ability after being selected.
Which
He
rapper was
remembers the
named
names of
after
all
an
the players
18th
selected ahead
century
of him. At the
Peruvian...
combine, he said 10 years from now, they'll do a redraft, and
Revolution.
he'll be at the top of the
Tupac
leaderboard.
Shakur.
This was when he was asked about being a
Should
projected
have made that one more
late first
difficult.
rounder. So, you know,
Which
Terry's
rapper's
another guy
dog,
who has a chip
Daddy,
on his shoulder, has
was
a ton of
featured on
confidence, but
Cesar
also
Millan
knows
show?
he has a lot to learn in areas of his game that he still needs to work on. If you didn't catch his media availability via Zoom last night, the excitement and energy that he displayed in wanting to be drafted by the Bulls, the fact that he told Mark Eversley, I'll run to where you guys are right now and get started. He's ready to start grinding. He wants to be an immediate impact to this team, and not just a project player that doesn't see a ton of playing time in his first few seasons. Now, aside from his determination, his desire, or work ethic that he exudes, and energy that he brings, that dog-like mentality the Bulls could really use on their roster, there are a lot of things to like about Dalen Terry. Just aside from that, he's a versatile wing who can guard multiple positions. He's a scrappy defender with his wingspan, very athletic, good court vision, and high IQ. He also is an okay shooter, a decent shooter from deep. A lot of people were talking about how he is the definition of a 3-and-D type of player, something the Bulls could really use, as we were really deficient on the wing this past season. And with Derek Jones Jr. and Troy Brown Jr. likely not returning to the roster, you're going to need more wing depth than someone who can
MP,
come
you
off
up
the
for a
bench
little photo challenge today?
or Zach. My
Yeah, I know you
biggest
like that.
hesitations around Terry is how much his game will actually translate to the NBA, especially as it relates to guarding bigger wings and power forwards that obviously you're not going to see at the NCAA level. He's pretty slender, 6'7", 195 pounds. If he can put on a little more weight to be able to be a force in the defensive end, that would be huge for the Bulls. Because again, the Bulls really don't have that right now. The other thing that had me a little confused about the pick and why it makes me a little hesitant is that he seems to be a little more raw, more of a project that can develop into a nice player down the line, but doesn't really fit a team that is, for all intents and purposes, looking to win now. That was the other thing. I mean, even though the Bulls were looking for the best player available, I would have also thought they would look for that player who can kind of straddle the lines between future upside potential, but a guy who can also contribute right away, given the timeline of the Bulls. But maybe Terry is that guy, and that's what they see in him. What I will say is I do like the long-term upside potential of Dalen Terry. Like, he's going to fit the long-term timeline of Patrick Williams and Idasumu. I think he could be a very impactful player a few years from now. I would see future all-star potential and a role player that is critical to the team's success, like a Tony Kukoc. And I'm comparing their games to Tony because they're not at all the same. Just more so the type of impact Kukoc brought to the Bulls back in the 90s. I kind of see the ceiling of something like that for Dalen Terry. Now, I did want to highlight some of the key takeaways from Mark Eversley's press conference when asked questions outside of their draft selection. Mark was asked about Zach LaVine's free agency, of course, mandatory question, and Mark was pretty emphatic, saying, quote, "We're prepared to do what it will take to bring Zach back into the fold," which really doesn't come as a surprise. There were reports that came out recently citing that interesting teams are now being informed that Zach is planning on re-signing the Bulls with Max. Really, it's becoming more and more certain that Zach will be back with the Bulls, despite there being some initial concern that he might be going elsewhere because of the comments he made in his exit interview. But I think at the end of the day, we all knew that Zach was going to stay with the Bulls with the amount of money they could offer him for a big team. The other thing that was discussed was Lonzo's rehab on his knee, taking progress that he's made since we last heard from him at the beginning of the season. After Lonzo said that his rehab was at a standstill, Mark did say that Lonzo continue working with positive news per se. I mean, it's great that Lonzo is making progress, but it's not as a surgery that happened in January that had an estimated timeline of return of 6 to 8 weeks at least, as it will be around 6 months after. And even still, there is the minor uncertainty as to whether he'll be ready to go by training camp. I don't know. I mean, you guys know, I've said this before, it's the same knee he already had surgery on after his rookie season for the same procedure. That is concerning if you're the Bulls for his general long-term health when he's only 24 years old. But at the same time, I'm sure Eversley can't just say, oh, well, he'll be back by training camp, no question, when that's so far away. Even if bio indicators that he'll be fine and back to normal by training camp, you know, that might not be something that he would be able to comfortably share given the medical staff's recommendation. So I understand the vague response that an executive would have to give to the media, but it's still a little unsettling.
Apollo, I can't tell you how excited I am to meet you,
man. The other
man.
tidbit that I thought was interesting, and this was actually related
I understand where you're coming from. And look, if I got to jump through a few...
specifically to Terry, but when asked about what are the Bulls' other plans to round out the roster based on the draft pick that was made last night, he touched on the need for rim protection alongside Vooch, which the only reason that I found that interesting because the rim protection is nothing new. We all know the Bulls need size and rim protection, but it was the fact that he emphasized around Nikola Vucevic because there has been so much trade talk centered around Rudy Gobert, which Vucevic would have included in a trade. There's so much speculation to the point where you can see outlets like the Bulls are the most likely destination for Gobert, and then a trade scene inevitable at this point. So for all of those hoping there's going to be this blockbuster trade sending Gobert to the Bulls, I want to pump the brakes on that because I don't think Eversley would have emphasized the need to build rim protectors around Vucevic if there was a trade for Gobert in the works. And it kind of holds true to the front office's word around continuity and keeping this core together, which would involve keeping Vucevic. Vooch is also up for an extension, and there were a few reports that came out saying Vooch is wanting to sign an extension with the Bulls before he gets official scrutiny. Either way, based on those comments, it doesn't look like the front office is looking to be in big shape. Moving on from Vucevic, it seems like they're looking to bring cheaper, more cost-effective options that fit their cap space that can provide the requisite defense in the paint that the Bulls need. Anyway, those were really the three biggest takeaways from the press conference with Mark Eversley last night, as well as more info on Dalen Terry. Let me know what you guys thought of the draft pick, as well as the insights I might have missed on the position. Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe as I do this content and see what you think, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.
Without a doubt, one of the most exciting offseason in the NBA since quite possibly the 2019 NBA offseason. The offseason we saw Kawhi Leonard lead the champions on the Raptors, winning them a championship. The offseason where we saw Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant team up in Brooklyn together, and the offseason where we saw the Lakers finally execute a trade for Anthony Davis. And in every NBA offseason, players switch teams, whether it be free agency or trade. Usually every year we have a rough idea of how to play the NBA offseason. However, this offseason, unlike prior offseasons, has been absolutely unpredictable in every single way. 2 weeks ago, we made a video on players that are about to be traded in the offseason. With this list, we're going to include players that could be traded in addition to players that could leave their team in free agency. So before we get to the content, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications so you can stay up to date on the latest and greatest NBA news. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? There's some players on this list that I mentioned in my players that are about to be traded video, and in those instances, I'm gonna just briefly touch up on their situation. Starting with DeAndre Ayton. Now, DeAndre Ayton is in a very peculiar situation, primarily because this is the guy that was the #1 overall pick in the 2018 NBA draft. He was drafted over the likes of Luka Doncic and Trae Young, and to some either of those players, then they would be a completely different team currently. And typically, when a #1 overall pick at least plays above average during their rookie scale contract, that's enough for their team to roll the dice on them and reward them with the max.
Hey, what's up? Get in here.
I mean, a great example of this is the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Hey, just the stylish man I wanted to.
Potential during his rookie scale contract, the Timberwolves maxed him out. Now, I'm not saying that was the right decision or the wrong decision, because at the time it was very controversial, but just to give you an idea, if there was even a flash of potential, you would be willing to extend the contract extension, especially if they happen to draft said player with the #1 overall pick. However, what separates DeAndre Ayton from other previous #1 overall picks is the fact that his team is currently in contention for a championship, and their championship window closes a little bit more each and every year, primarily due to the age of Chris Paul. And as a result of that, it seems like the Phoenix Suns are a little bit skeptical about paying DeAndre Ayton a contract that many people have happily given. Now, the current situation that the Phoenix Suns are in with Ayton is the fact that since Ayton's a free agent, they have the right to match any contract offer that DeAndre Ayton receives. But the thing is, if a team was to offer DeAndre Ayton maximum money, chances are the Phoenix Suns wouldn't match it. So in the past, there was a rumor that the Pistons were interested in DeAndre Ayton. That doesn't seem to be the case anymore, especially after acquiring Jalen Duren in the NBA draft, which, by the way, Pistons fans, I know a lot of you guys are upset at my Jeremy Grant trade analysis because, well, it seems like I was a little bit premature in analyzing that trade right before the NBA draft. I didn't really see what they were going to do in the NBA draft with the future first-round pick that they were going to acquire. So obviously, I think you guys are huge winners as a result of that. I would have never seen that coming. But the latest we have on DeAndre Ayton is that all signs have pointed to Detroit making a serious run at DeAndre Ayton over the last few days. That appears less likely after the Pistons walked away with two of the players highest on the organization's big board. Per sources, Detroit is eager to continue to build back towards playoff contention with the aforementioned young core. And the Pistons are expected to use the majority of their remaining cap space to add multiple veteran pieces rather than just one big swing this offseason. So maybe the San Antonio Spurs enter the race and offer DeJounte Murray, as DeJounte Murray was very close to being traded. But for now, DeAndre Ayton's future seems a little ambiguous. Next, we have Rudy Gobert. Despite making his third All-Star team in a row and leading the NBA in rebounds per game, Rudy Gobert is on the trade block. It's for a simple reason, however. The Utah Jazz, with their core of Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, have never made it past the second round of the NBA playoffs. And they believe just running it back with their current lineup won't yield any better results. And honestly, it makes sense. So as a result, the Jazz are looking to add new pieces to help rejuvenate their team. But since the team has no draft picks going into the NBA draft, they only can